everyone. I'm teacher from Art for All, and my name is Christy. Today I'm gonna teach everyone how to do like a simple portrait like this, and we're gonna start with like the basic structure of faces. So first, when we see like a picture like this, we're trying to find like the center point of the face of the human portrait. So for this lady, you see like most of like her face is shifted towards like the left side. So when we first started draft out our portrait, of course we have to measure how big we're going to draw it first, but then we also need to put down the center point of the reference that we have. So we can start with like a really loose circle. And then the bottom part, it might be a little too loose for you to see right now, but let me darken this a little bit. But this is how we start off like a portrait at first. And we'll be putting down the general shape of what we see. I recommend putting down like more straight lines and curved lines. I know a lot of students at first they would start with like a lot of curvy lines, which is not bad, but it will be harder for you to measure things, right? So we usually recommend to do straight lines. And here is the neck area, somewhere here, and the ear. So for drawing portrait or like human figure in general, just a lot of different kinds of measurement. So right now I'm putting this line down, which is something that is kind of close to her hairline, right? So we're trying to draw really soft here. So in order to change things, because we don't want to be like drawing too hard and then we can't even erase the drawing, right? So what I'm using right now is a woodless color pencil, which is very nice for us to put down different values comparing to other material. But of course you can use like charcoal pencil or like any kinds of material that you like. So right now we already have like a face structure of this lady. It might be, let me check. It might be a little more wide over here on the cheekbones. But yeah, so far we have like a base structure. And then next, we can even put down like a little bit of like indication of her hair. And the other part. So there's something that we have to be really careful is like the eye level of everyone is different. So we have to make sure that her eye is tilted down. So we can put down like a little circle. Not circle, but like a curved line to indicate her eye is like tilting like this. And we're gonna put down the nose. It's around here. There's a really good way of checking is when you look at the reference, there's like a three part of like a human face usually. So the top part is like the hairline to the eyebrow, and the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose, and the bottom of the nose to the chin. So this is how we can measure in general. It's not like everyone has the same measurement, but usually we can use that to keep track with our proportion. So here will be 1, 2. So 1, 2, right? Let me move this a little bit. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3. So far our proportion is not looking that bad. Okay, here. We can even use our pencil to bring this line back to our reference to see if the line is actually correct. So it seems like the angle is close, so that's pretty good. And then we can check the cheek on the side like this to here. So mine is a little bit more tilted up, that I might have to fix it a little bit. Let me grab my eraser and just simply erase the side. Alright, so next we can try to put down this eye socket area on our drawing, which is around here. And remember, our center line is on this side, right? So we also can put down the center line here. So our faces, our center line is really, really important for drawing figures because we're mostly symmetrical, but not everyone's the same, right? But a center line is really good to help us to make sure things are balanced in a certain perspective, because her face is actually shifted a little bit. So if we put the center line a little off center, then we will know that this eye is actually a little smaller than this one. But not everyone's the same, because some people has like bigger eyes on one side, like her. Her eyes is like a little bigger here, but in general, the perspective, right? If we use a camera, this eye is closer to us, so this eye is supposed to be bigger, and this one should be a little smaller, but the model has like a different look. So it really depends on the person that you're drawing, right? But in general, if we follow the perspective, her eye should be a little smaller on this side and a little bigger on the other side. Is to create the illusion of like angles, right? So we can put down like a little bit details, and sometimes I'll even use my pencil to give the eye socket a little shadow, and I use the shadow to create the brow and the eye. It's kind of like drawing a skull to begin with. Like this. So the paper I'm using is called a tone paper, which is really good for drawing portrait because we can use like a white pencil later to add on some light details. So now we'll see like her hairline start here, and then it go ups, and we can also put down a little bit hair direction to show that how her hair is gonna be growing from her root. I'll probably give her a little bit more hair on this side. So usually for reference, right? A reference is really good to help us how to draw like a little bit better, closer to the like a realistic approach. But as artists, we're not camera, right? So we don't have to follow everything 100%. As long as it's getting close, and then we need to also add our artistic twists to the drawing, right? So we can make sure that this is like art, it's not just like a photocopy from a camera, right? Like, why do we need to draw if there's like a camera, right? Because we want to create something more like creative and putting our personality into the drawing. So we already have like a pretty good base here, And then we can moving on to her nose. Her nose is a little bit tilting to this way, a little bit more like longer. So usually the tip of a nose has like a little ball shape, and we can use and draw out the ball shape to help us shape the nose out. Something like that. And we can double check to see if this line is right. Okay, it's looking pretty good. And the eye socket. Right. And then we just keep adding the details in to indicate her structure of the nostril. You can already kind of see like a face is popping out from my drawing. And of course, the mouth. Remember to leave some space between the chin and the mouth. Right? So now what I'm seeing is that I kind of don't have as much distance here comparing, like my drawing doesn't have as much distance comparing to the reference. So what we're gonna do is we can make the nose, the bottom of a nose can be a little smaller. And then we can add this little part here. And continue the mouth. Remember, there's a bottom lip. And everything is also like aligned back to our center line. Right? Okay. It's looking pretty good right now. Remember, we can also add little detail of the ears. There's always like a really dark part over here, and we can also add that in. And little baby hair on the other side. Also, more hair on the top. All right, and then moving on, we gotta be putting more details of the eyes. So make sure that we're not gonna draw the eye too big over this side because of the perspective that we talk about. I can draw a little bit darker so you can see better. Over here. Her eyes is like really tilting down. It's almost like her eyes a little sad looking, which is fine because everyone's unique. We can add a little shadow here to help us see how her face is going to be structured and the forms of her bones. Can add darker for her brows. Also, there's a really good thing to check is over here. There, the edge over here, the brow, and we can line it up back a little bit to the hairline. So we can form like a better looking hairlines, because usually that's how our bone structure works. And on this plane, usually it has like a little slight shadow that based off our eyebrow. It's almost like our eyebrow is formed really just on top of our bones. That's why the arch is gonna be on this side based off like how her bone's gonna look like underneath the skin. All right. And then we can darken these lines a little bit. Also, it's really faint, it's really hard to see over here, but she actually has like a little bit shading, a little shadow on the cheek area. And our eye needs to be darkened too over here. Keep working on the eye. Make sure the eyelid is also parallel with our eye line on the top. We're going to be constantly fixing things and adding things, right? Until we're satisfied with our lines. You can start shading it a little bit to help us see if the form that we put down is working, right? We have to keep double checking. All right. So we kind of have like a base for us to work on now, because our draft is pretty much there. Gonna add the double eyelid over here. Make sure the brow has to be also like parallel. Okay, it kind of looks a little creepy, isn't it? Without the eyeballs, the iris inside. So we can also add that in. Usually I like to make the model look into the camera. What I mean by camera is to look at us, right? I'll definitely make our drawing feels a little more alive if they're looking into the camera. All right. So now we have to darken the area that is really like digging inside. So in order to make something like 2D, what we're drawing is 2D on the paper, to make it feel 3D, we have to make sure the deeper part, the darker area has to be dark, and the light area has to be light in order to create that 3D feelings on the paper. We have to really observe the face of a human structure really closely. We can add some brow. For her. And sometimes our eraser would be a really good drawing tool to help us move things around. Darken the part that is inwards. can add a little bit more shadow to her. All right. So now I'm figuring out there's a little bit issues with the face that I drew. I kind of make this side a little bit thicker than it's supposed to be. So now is a really good time to fix it before we darken the hair. That's why it's really good to draw light so we can make changes, right? Don't be afraid to make mistake when you first started to draw, because we need to have some lines to help us know that if we're making a good line or a bad line, right? See the bottom lips, it has like a shadow here that we can work on, and it will help us to make her face feel more rounded. Also on the side of the cheek. And the nose line. So now I'm running into a problem. It's like my pencil is not as sharp. So drawing like a human portrait is really important to make sure that your pencil, your tools are really sharp. Because we do have a lot of sharp angles on our face. So let me sharpen my pencil a little bit. All right. So you see like the sharpened line is actually helping out a lot to make sure that our drawing is popping. It really helps a lot. The mouth lines is also really sharp. controlling the sharper line and the soft line is really the key of drawing portraits. So now what we need to do is to continue adding more details, trying to finish the drawing, yeah? Some lashes to her in order to make a portrait model to feel more like a feminine person. We need to add like more details of like lashes on her eyes to tell people that it's not a feminine looking male. Instead, it's more of like a lady. Unless we're drawing like a transgender female, then it would be a different scenario. Now we can follow the reference and trying to add more shadow, like a little bumps on her forehead and everywhere. Again, it's a lot of back and forth. We can even add a little bit shading to her nose. I think shading really like makes things changes. It will be a lot more 3D and realistic instantly. Don't forget about the lips. And the bottom lips. more shadow on the side. Finally, not really finally yet, but we can also add in the hair to give it like more of a final touch. Make sure the area of the hair is dark enough so we can pop the neck out. Also follow the flow. There's a lot more detail that you can add to the drawing in order to make it to feel more like the model. But for now, this is what we have as like a base for us to work on even more. And we can even use a little bit of a white pencil Wait, let me add more shadow over here first to show the bone. We can use a white pencil to already adding in some lights on the area that is pretty light and it's like kind of like showing it is popping out. Like her eye, there's like a reflection on her eye. And the eyelid, usually I'll like to add a little more light to it so it feels like it's coming out, right? And the tip of the nose, a little bit at the bridge, smear it a little bit, and the angle over here underneath the brow usually has like a little shine to it, just like how we apply makeup to our face. Also the bone area over here is a little bit like pointing out. We can even add it on the cheek a little bit. It's like contour and adding highlights to our drawing. And adding more hair on the side. Bottom, the neck. A little bit more contour on her face, so it feels like the face is round. We can also add a layer of shadow under the neck to show that the neck has like a thickness and roundness to it. We can smear it a little bit too. Little hair on the side over here. And even add more hair to make it feel more realistic. So yeah, this is pretty much the basic of how to do like a portrait. All we need to do after this is to add more details and trying to make it feel more complete. But this is the end of my demo. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for watching. And I hope you have a good day, and hopefully everyone would find your joy and happiness in drawings. Thank you.